Oh no, I was selling crack. It's Friday again, and that means it's time for another Florida Man Friday, written by Kevin, read by me. Let's get into it! It must be Friday. Yes, it must be, Kevin. As much as I'm sure Simon has enjoyed the recurring gag of modeling the past couple of episodes' themes on Star Wars. Yeah, I loved it, Kevin. I got all of the references and know Star Wars so well.
That's sarcasm. He's very good at sarcasm.
This is going to be the last time I do it for the foreseeable future, thank God. But just like Star Wars, our Episode 7 is going to be a shot-for-shot remake of Episode 4. I have no idea what you're talking about, Kevin! Okay, maybe not an actual remake, but we will be revisiting the theme of fast food-related Florida Man stories, because honestly, there's just a mountain of them. That's understandable, though, because not a lot is opening at 1 in the morning, so fast food restaurants are the only place for Florida Man to go once he's turned up and looking to get rowdy. But enough of my jibber-jabber. Let's bring on the crimes. Florida woman licks man, dances naked in Waffle House parking lot. Someone smoked meth. This is like a meth situation. Depending on who you ask, I have either never had the pleasure or the displeasure of going to a Waffle House. The chain is mainly limited to the Midwest and South, especially the South, and the closest Waffle House to me is 250 miles away in Scranton, Pennsylvania. Is that where the office is set? And while there are obviously Waffle Houses in Florida, there was a 24-hour Denny's directly across the street from the University of Miami, so there was never a reason to venture further away for shitty diner food. That said, I don't think I've ever been to a Waffle House. Been to a Denny's many times. That said, Waffle House is a cornerstone of American culture and one that lives in infamy. The chain is famous for keeping their restaurants open 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. God damn, that's all the time.
Good work, Summer. 4.5 gold stars for you.
No matter what, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, even has something called the Waffle House Index to gauge how severe a natural disaster is. No way. It's like if the Waffle House closes, you know it's bad. The phrase was coined by FEMA Administrator Craig Fugate following the 2011 Joplin tornado. The tornado struck the town of Joplin, Missouri, killing 158 people, injuring 1,100 more, and causing neither of Joplin's 2 Waffle Houses to close for even a minute. Sounds like if you want to be safe from a hurricane, you just got to go to the Waffle House, dude. They'll keep you sheltered. FEMA now rates the severity of an ongoing natural disaster based on whether Waffle House is open with its full menu, open with a partial menu because of either limited supplies or a power outage, or if it's actually closed. Actually closed is like DEFCON 1, dude. The nukes are coming. Russia's pressed the button. According to FEMA, if the local Waffle House is closed, then shit has gotten real. While that may seem impressive, if not ill-advised, Waffle House's open no matter what policy has made it infamous for the type of clientele it attracts. When a restaurant is open 24 hours a day, there isn't really a lot of time to keep the place clean. It also is a magnet for all the people who stayed at the bar until closing and have nowhere else to go, as well as for broke kids and college students who don't have the money to do anything else, as the food at Waffle House is very cheap. Well, no matter how cheap the food at Waffle House is, isn't it always cheaper to just go to the supermarket and buy food and then cook it?
Ain't nobody got time for that.
Like, it's always cheaper. I could go on and on about why Waffle House has the reputation that it does, but for anyone who still isn't clear on exactly what kind of place it is, I can sum it up really easily. If you type, "why do people fight?" into Google, the top it surely can't be. The top autocomplete answer is at Waffle House.
I'd like to test that theory.
Waffle House got like Fight Club going on. So yeah, that's the kind of place it is. And that's the kind of customer the 38-year-old Florida woman, Freedom Rider Zobrist, was. That is a fucking name, dude. Freedom Rider. R-Y-D-E-R, but still. Freedom arrived at the Waffle House in Pensacola early in the morning of January the 21st, 2019. It's not clear exactly what time she got there, but the reporting indicates that she had been there for multiple hours, being a general nuisance the entire time. When the manager arrived at 6:30 that morning, he understandably asked her to leave. But this is America, damn it. You can't just ban freedom from your restaurant because you find it inconvenient or disruptive. I feel like, yes, you can. It's your restaurant. You can be like, get the fuck out. It was like, I have a right to be here. No, you don't. It's private property. Get the fuck out. It'd be like some homeless person walks into your house. You can't tell me to leave. This is America. It's like, yes, you can tell them to leave.
I no longer wish for you to purchase my meat products.
Or at the very least, that's what Freedom seemed to believe. As she returned to the restaurant at about 12:15 p.m., she was sitting at the back door of the restaurant, possibly blocking the door, though it's unclear. Either way, the manager again came and asked her to leave, what with him already having thrown her out less than 6 hours ago. So, how did Freedom react to this request? Well, by threatening to come back with a gun so she could murder the manager and all the employees. Holy shit, the police getting called on you. She then walked to the middle of the parking lot, dropped her pants, and started dancing around the parking lot, fully exposed in full view of the families, including children who happened to look outside the restaurant windows while all of this was happening. This is so Florida, Jesus. The manager went over to try to put an end to this nonsense, and it seems that Freedom completely misread the situation. If a guy kicks you out of a building twice in one day, that's not some form of flirting. He's just not that into you. When the manager approached Freedom in the parking lot, she tried to grab his cock before leaning forward and licking both sides of his face. That's gross, because she's probably got that meth mouth going on, right? Because she's smoking all that meth, dude. She's smoking most of the meth in Florida. Someone else was trying to leave the restaurant, so Freedom stood in front of his car, blocking his escape while she continued dancing naked. She was arrested and charged with lewd and indecent exposure of sexual organs, because they are apparently separate charges, disorderly conduct, battery, and assault. I'd love to make a joke about how Freedom isn't free, but she actually is, which is honestly a little bit weird. The exposure charges were dropped, and she was only convicted of the assault charges, for which she received probation without any jail time. I mean, yeah, I get it. Like, her crimes were not that serious. She should get some, heavy community service or something. This is surprising, since while in jail awaiting trial, Freedom assaulted someone else. She received 150 days in prison for that assault, of which 130 have been served while awaiting trial. You would think that a person who commits assault while in jail, awaiting trial on assault charges, would get a harsher sentence than just 1 year's probation, but that's Florida for you, I guess. The problem is assault here, she did grab his cock, and she licked his face. It's not like she stabbed him or something.
Actually, my lord commands I be into that.
Florida man steals Waffle House tattoo. I promise this isn't going to be... How do you steal a tattoo? Isn't that what it says? Steals Waffle House tattoo? Is he cutting a tattoo off someone's body? That's pretty fucked up if that's what's happening. I promise this isn't going to be an entire script about Waffle House, but I had to include this cautionary tale. Although I can understand the appeal and have nothing against them, I don't, nor will I ever get a tattoo. Me and Kevin, same page. My tastes are far too ephemeral and mercurial to have something emblazoned on my body for the rest of my life, I agree. If I ever were to get one for some reason, there would need to be a considerable amount of time spent deliberating on the design. Getting a tattoo should not be a snap decision made while drunk. That's how you wind up with a tattoo of Colonel Sanders or the Chiquita Banana Lady on your chest. Really? Or for 33-year-old Florida man, Max Craig Kant, that's how you wind up with the Waffle House logo tattooed on your calf. According to the reporting, Max had been drinking, and he had clearly been drinking enough to think that this was an awesome idea for a tattoo. After getting presumably shit-faced, he headed over to the tattoo parlor, Ink Gods in St. Petersburg, and yes, listeners, that is Gods with a Z. Anyway, after getting his tattoo done and being presented with the bill for $250, Max refused to pay. Or rather, Max was incapable of paying, realizing that he only had $6 in cash on him and no credit cards. If someone rolls up, shit-faced off their face, like roaring drunk, you gotta ask for the money up front, or just don't tattoo them at all because they're roaring drunk. He was charged with theft and pled no contest. After fines and court contests, that $250 tattoo wound up costing Max $675. The worst part is he can't even try to get some ad revenue from Waffle House because he already has the tattoo. You have to make those kinds of deals beforehand. Also, no, Waffle House don't want you advertising their brand, dude. You're not a good look. Florida man sues Dunkin Donuts for pissing and shitting all over him. Okay. Using a public restroom is always a bit of a gamble. I try never to do it. If I'm taking a shit in a public restroom, something has gone terribly wrong. I've been to a fancy restaurant where the bathroom was immaculate and all the graffiti on the stall walls was about what a great restaurant it was, and I've been to dive bars where no amount of bleach would be enough to stop the floor from being sticky. Now that I think of it, as a child, I also used the bathroom in a church where the stalls contained what I'm only now realizing was a glory hole. What the fuck in a church? What the fuck? That's more than a little concerning since I grew up in Catholic Boston. Since I grew up Catholic in Boston, so let me file that memory away back under repressed and move on. Fucking hell, Kevin. January 6th, 2022 began as an ordinary day for Florida man Paul Kerouac, and it would have remained one were it not for the incident. The details leading up to the event are unclear, but let's just assume that Paul was stopping by a local Dunkin Donuts to grab a coffee and use the restroom on his way to or from work, and that's when it allegedly happened. Suddenly, and without warning, the toilet exploded, showering Paul with shit and piss. This is a fucking nightmare. After being covered from head to toe in human waste, he escaped from the cursed bathroom and asked the employees for help. I can't imagine being paid minimum wage to clean human shit of a stranger, but the employees obliged his request. You're probably thinking that, well, that's not actually part of their job and they were just being decent human beings, but based on what they allegedly said next, it sounds actually like it was an ordinary part of their jobs. According to Paul, while the employees were helping him get clean, they told him that they were aware of the toilet malfunctioning because this wasn't the first time this had happened.
But it's weird that it happened twice, right?
Just think about that for a moment. One day, a toilet erupted, unleashing a violent torrent of human filth all over the bathroom. The floor, walls, ceiling, and the customer were all drenched in what remained of the tuna noodle casserole some random bastard had for dinner the night before. Cleaning and sanitizing the room would have been a harrowing task, and one that would have made the employees question all of the life decisions that led to that exact moment in time. And when it was all over, what did they do? Absolutely nothing.
It's the American way.
The toilet wasn't repaired, and there was no sign on either the bathroom door or the toilet itself warning of what perils lied ahead for any unfortunate soul who couldn't prairie dog it until they made it back home. I've never heard that phrase before, and I like it. It was a clear case of negligence, or so Paul's attorneys are arguing. Paul has filed a suit against Dunkin for over $50,000, with some reports claiming it was over $100,000. According to the lawsuit, as a direct and proximate result of the negligence of defendant, plaintiff suffered bodily injury and psychological damages resulting in pain and suffering, disability, permanent and significant emotional injury, mental anguish, loss of the capacity for the enjoyment of life, and damages are either permanent or continuing in nature, and the plaintiff will suffer losses in the future. Holy shit, lawyers. Okay. I know it's the lawyer's job to be a zealous advocate for their clients, and I agree that this would be an extremely traumatic experience that would have a lot of lingering PTSD related to the use of public toilets. That said, I can't help but find a little bit of humor in the phrase, lost the capacity for the enjoyment of life, because a toilet exploded, got covered in shit. Dude. You fucking snowflake, dude. If this happened to me, I'd brush off my eyes and get back to work. So I'm not a coward. Allegedly. It's as if they're claiming that ever since the day he was covered in shit, colors just aren't as vivid and ice cream doesn't taste as sweet. Oh, I think this phrase may be overselling the trauma a tiny bit. I really hope I never find out myself. Florida woman claims embezzled money was from drug sales. I didn't embezzle the money. I got it from selling drugs. Honestly, officer. 50-year-old Florida woman Christine Cox was a manager at Dunkin Donuts for several years. And you know what? Despite their alleged negligence in the previous entry, good on Dunks for being willing to hire Christine into a managerial role. It can be really difficult for convicts to get jobs, and Christine had just been convicted of stealing about $2,100 worth of scratch tickets from the Winn-Dixie where she worked previously. She stole from the previous employer and then you employ her. That's really intense, dudes. She was sentenced to probation for the crime, and she learned absolutely nothing from it. Even if Christine wasn't going to learn to stop committing crimes, you'd think that she'd at least learn to be better at committing crimes. Stealing lottery tickets is a terrible idea since they're so closely tracked and monitored. There was an entire grocery store full of products to steal, and she went for the one thing that had a 0% chance of actually being able to take without getting caught. And like I said, she didn't learn her lesson. Things went fine for Christine at Dunks for a while until one day the location had a payroll shortage. Corporate decided to send in some auditors to figure out what was going on, and they discovered that a large number of the branch's bank deposits never made it to Wells Fargo where they were supposed to be dropped off. This was really weird, especially since all of the backlog surveillance footage showed Christine, who was in charge of making the deposits, leaving the restaurant every day to take the money to Wells Fargo. That's so bizarre that the money kept just vanishing somehow. Even stranger was that Christine had an awful lot of deposits made to her personal bank account that weren't payroll checks. How do you not think you're... This is... You're so... I don't have words for how stupid this is.
You are a total... A word is yet to be invented to describe how totally whatever it is you are, but you are one, and a total one at that.
It was the sort of mystery that even the writers of Blue's Clues would dismiss as being far too simple for their audience of 5-year-olds. In total, Christine is suspected of embezzling $153,000 from Dunkin Donuts. After the audit, she left her job and started working at Burger King, but we'll see how long that lasts. When detectives began investigating Christine's involvement in this pretty open and shut-looking case, she had a bold strategy for her defense. She claimed that all of those suspicious cash deposits weren't money stolen from her job, they were from money from her boyfriend's illegal narcotic sales. Well, at least it's not hers. At least she didn't say, oh no, I was selling crack. I guess accessory to drug trafficking is probably a lesser crime than grand theft on that scale, but throwing your drug dealer boyfriend under the bus to just try and stay out of jail seems like a stupid and possibly even suicidal idea. Assuming the boyfriend even exists, and it isn't just Christine's terrible attempt at trying to establish reasonable doubt for a jury trial. Christine is currently being held without bail on charges of felony grand theft while she awaits trial for her extremely obvious crime, allegedly. So let this be a reminder to all of you that crime doesn't pay. At least not if you're a fucking idiot. Yeah, it's like, and the thing is like, crime doesn't pay? Well, yeah, it does. Otherwise there wouldn't be like financial crime, would there? Because it obviously pays. Florida man reminds couple they're in Florida. We're going to end today with one of the most Florida man stories I have ever heard. It was about 9:30 at night last October when 52-year-old Florida man Jonathan Mashburn drove his SUV into the drive-thru of a Key West Taco Bell, or Taco Bell if you're feeling particularly American. While allegedly being visibly intoxicated. After getting his order, he positioned his car in the parking lot, went to grab something from the back, and then got back in and started backing his SUV into the parking spot. Jonathan was backing in next to a truck where a couple were enjoying their food, but he apparently enjoying their food from Taco Bell, were they? I thought they were just tolerating it. But apparently he wasn't doing a good job of backing up. The woman rolled down her window and yelled that he was about to hit them, though he managed to avoid doing so. After parking his car uncomfortably close to theirs, Jonathan then began yelling them about the brightness of their headlights. He believed they had their high beams on, though drunkenness can result in increased light sensitivity. I remember one time I was driving along.
And now, as promised, the tangent.
And someone's just coming along with their high beams on, and I'm like, you just give them a little flash, be like, yo, your high beams are still on. And the guy just keeps driving towards me. His high beams are still on, just like, dude. And then the third time I do it, because I'm like, oh, for fuck's sake, it's really bright. He actually turns on his high beams. I'm like, ah! Because I thought his lights were so bright, I thought his high beams were on. Turns out, no. And they were much brighter. The driver flashed their high beams to show Jonathan they, in fact, had not been on, and that this was the last straw. He pulled out a gun and yelled at them, "You know where you are? I'll fucking kill you. You're in Florida." I'm pretty sure this isn't what the founding fathers had in mind when they wrote the Second Amendment.
Of course it's clear. Every American has the right to hang a pair of bear arms on their wall. How could that possibly be misconstrued?
But I'm also sure that the comment section will now be full of self-proclaimed constitutional scholars spamming the words "shall not be infringed" as though there aren't other words in that amendment. But I digress. One of the victims had started recording the incident on their phone, and as soon as Jonathan realized that he was on camera, he sped away. When police picked him up following the incident, Jonathan claimed that the couple had pulled a gun on him first. Although this took place in October, it was over a week before hedonistic crowds flocked to Key West for Fantasy Fest. What is going on? What is this? That meant the couple were more likely to be residents than tourists, and what would you know it turns out that they'd already been well aware that they were in Florida because the woman actually did have a gun in her purse. The gun wasn't loaded and the magazine was stored in a separate compartment, but she did have one. However, it seems that she didn't draw her weapon first, as Jonathan quickly recanted his allegation. He is currently facing 2 charges of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, and hopefully he has learned a valuable lesson from all of this. Even though the situation fortunately didn't escalate to this point, you should never randomly pull a gun on someone just because you think being a Florida man gives you that right. Remember, that person you're aiming a gun at is probably also a Florida man or woman, and they might be a better shot than you. And that's where we end today's Florida Man Friday. Thank you for being here. I'll see you next week. Actually, I'll see you sooner, but for Florida Man Friday, you'll see me next week on Friday. That's how weeks work. Thanks for being here. Bye. Someone smoked meth.